Oxygen is one of the best abortives you can have if it works for you, and it works for well over half of the cluster headache patients. And I'd like to preface everything I'm saying. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a guy with cluster headaches that has refined itself, and I'm trying to share with you on a personal one-to-one basis. Cluster Busters does not give or dispense medical advice, nor do I. So I'm sharing with you one-on-one what I know to be true for me. I started out with a 15 liter a minute regulator. I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And a cheap non-rebreather mask like this, the one you get from your local oxygen supply store, which is better than nothing, but really it is nothing. I don't know if you can see it, but these masks have these silly little straps on them. Cut those off and throw them away. Because if you're going to use that and fall asleep with this thing on, the tank will run out and you will start experiencing breathing difficulties because you will start suffocating. Through the years, the cluster headache community had various incarnations of better masks, and finally they came up with a Cluster O2 kit from clusterheadaches.com. It has the big bag, a choice of mouthpiece or mask. That makes a lot of difference as far as you're getting the flow that you can. It's set up on these two tanks right here. That's using a face mask, which personally I don't care for. When I'm getting hit, I don't like it. This uses a mouthpiece, like so. This is what I use, and I love it a whole lot better than I do that face mask. The face mask feels confining when I'm getting hit. Actually, my face hurts, so I certainly don't want that. One thing that people talk about is demand valve. This is a demand valve, one of many different kinds. It's a Cadillac, but you don't need a Cadillac to go to the grocery store. Yugo will do if that's what all you need. But it does conserve oxygen. It pulls on it. You notice it stops. You don't waste oxygen. You can actually get a higher flow with less and abort faster with less oxygen using this. At least that's been my case. Cleanliness. Wash these masks. Warm soapy water. These you can take apart. You can actually take the valves off. Wash them in warm soapy water every once in a while. I don't know. I do mine once a month when I'm using it a whole lot, but sooner probably wouldn't hurt. If nothing else, just put it in a sink of warm water and soapy water and then rinse it out, because it keeps these valves from starting to stick. The residue from your exhalation will start kind of building up on it. There's nothing worse than going, I can't pull anything through because it's stuck, valve sticks. Plus it's just not sanitary. A lot of people get confused about the type of equipment that's out there. You've got a big tank, which is an M tank. Also, a welding tank is roughly the same size. A lot of the things that will work on a welding tank will work on a medical M tank and vice versa. Keep that in mind for future reference. And the E tank, which is the most common medical tank, which is called a post type. Post type regulators, these are a dime a dozen everywhere you go. Personally, I recommend 25 liters a minute. If you don't need it, fine, but you got it if you do. Amazon, roughly $27. Another type of regulator is for the demand valve. It's got the disc fitting, or power takeoff as a lot of people call it. That draws directly from the regulator. It doesn't have a thing to do with where the thing is set. This can be on zero. This engages your draw direct. It's just like drawing directly from the outlet on the post. For those of us that have higher lung capacity and don't want to spend the money for a demand valve, we have 40 liter a minute regulators or higher. These are available from W.T. Farley. These are, to me, the best thing since sliced bread. This is my personal one. I carry it in my vehicle with a tank behind the seat. Reach back there, turn it on, and start using it. The demand valve sits beside my bed because it takes less concentration and less conscious effort to operate it. The no rubber seals inside here over time, the heat and the cold cycle will cause that rubber to start softening. And you turn it on and you hadn't needed it for 6 months and that seal blows out and there you are. And trust me, I know how that feels because it happened to me. So I order a whole bag full of these seals and just swap it out every few months. Now, I would never recommend anything that would be off-label or off-use, but this is a welding regulator for a welding tank. It suits our purpose fairly well. Unlimited flow of oxygen for, I think these were $27 from Harbor Freight. It's hooked up to that medical tank over there. They're a little bit touchy when you first buy one because you can literally blow the mask clean off. But if you finesse it, set it, all you do is turn the tank on and off from there on. It's a very cheap way to get high flow oxygen. I will tell you this, a lot of times if you'll go to a higher flow regulator, you'll use less oxygen because it will abort faster. 15 to me was a godsend until I tried a 25, and there was as much difference between 25 and 15 as there was 15 and nothing. That 10 liters a minute made a real big difference in my abort times. And that's when I started chasing demand valves and higher flows and such like that made it even better. But that's just me. But I would recommend that you get a higher flow regulator and try it. You may actually cut down on the amount of oxygen you're using by not having to stay on it as long at 15. As many times as people abort with oxygen and come to me and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. Most of the time, they're using with the cheap masks. They're waiting on the flow. They can't breathe normally. You have to at least be able to breathe normally in order to abort with it, for me. I have an abnormally large lung capacity. Where it came from, I don't know, but I can outrun a 25 liter a minute regulator. I found the best way to abort a headache is to breathe in very deeply and exhale completely and repeat the process as fast as you can. Now, you can have some success with hyperventilating. A lot of people recommend that. In order to do that, that's a lot of work because you're in and out as much as you can take in and out as much as you can put out as fast as you can. It's almost like running from here to the store and back. And you just keep on doing that. And your fingers will start tingling, your toes maybe, and that's when you're hyperventilating. That will knock one out for me when nothing else will, most of the time. That has only failed to work like 3 times in my entire cluster headache experience. And in fact, oxygen, since I've been using it and using it at a high flow rate, has only failed me 3 times. If I wake up soon enough, normal cycle, I can abort out of deep sleep in 5 to 7 minutes, sometimes 3. And sometimes the beast morphs, cluster headaches change. They tend to get used to what you're doing and they want to beat it. And anybody here knows that. So you might want, if you're hyperventilating, maybe you just need to take a bit deeper breaths and hold them and let them out and do it calmly. If you're doing that and it doesn't work, you might need to hyperventilate. You might need to vary it up time to time. But you have to experiment with what works for you. You can't just say, well, that guy at the convention said, hey, this is the way to do it and that's the only way. That's not the only way. Don't take my word for it. Talk to everybody and say, well, what works for you? How does it work? I can't get it to work. Somebody else may have a better way that I don't know about. So oxygen will work for most people if you will experiment with it and try it and switch it up. If one way stops working, try it a different way.